Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the July wrap-up. Okay, so the first book I read in July was The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, which is the second book in the Wheel of Time series, which is an epic fantasy series, and I have a reading vlog for this book up in my channel that I'm going to link in the description. And basically we follow the characters after the crazy ending of book 1. And I'm not gonna... Why are people texting me? And I don't really want to spoil anything, but my reading vlog is completely filled with spoilers, so if you want to know what happened, all my spoilery thoughts are there. But yeah, I really like the plot, and in book 1 I had some complaints about the pacing. I thought there were some slow sections. In this one I thought the pacing was really good, so I didn't have any problems with that. And the only things I had problem with was how some characters were treating other characters, because Rand's friends were being like really mean to him, and they were all being like really awful to Moiraine. Like they already were awful to Moiraine in book 1, but I was hoping that they would have gotten over that in book 2, but they didn't. But yes, overall I really enjoyed this book and I gave it 4 stars. The next 4 books I read, I also have a reading vlog for them because it was for the Summer Win readathon, and I'm also gonna link that. And the first book of that vlog and the second book I read this month was The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. And this book basically follows Tom, who is supposed to deliver a book to a sorceress. And he does that, although he doesn't really do the job right, because the book wasn't exactly complete. And after that he is approached by a man who asks him to go like sing and play at his party, and then that man basically opens up a portal to another dimension, another realm, something else. And I really enjoyed part 1 where we followed Tom, but I didn't really care for part 2 because we were following another character that just like kind of came out of nowhere, and I was just like, I don't really care about you or your life at all. So yeah, I really liked part 1. I really liked the ending because Tom was in the ending, but I didn't really care much about the whole like second half of the book. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. The next book I read was Kill Creek by Scott Thomas, and this is a horror book. And we basically follow 4 horror authors, and they are going to spend Halloween at a haunted house for an interview. And we get glimpses at all their lives, and their lives are connected to the way they're haunted in the house. And then they leave the house, and that's kind of when the real haunting begins. After a while, they'll realize that they're kind of all going through the same thing, the same kind of haunting, and so they all get together, and they decide to go back to the house. And the hauntings only get worse when they go back to the house, specifically for one of the characters. And there's a fight, there's like a lot of fighting, and I loved it. I loved everything about this book. I loved the plot itself, I loved the horror aspect of it, in the way that like I love stories about haunted houses. I really liked following these characters. And I loved like descriptions of like scary, creepy, gross stuff. I thought it was so good and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was Claude in the Cornfield by Adam Caesar, and this was also a horror novel. And in this book we follow Quinn as she and her dad move to Kettle Springs, which is a town which is kind of divided in 2 sides, the kids and the adults. And there's basically a mascot. It's not of the town, but it's like of an establishment of the town, but it kind of became the mascot of the town, and it's a clown called Frendo, and he suddenly starts murdering people at a party. And after we see all these murders happening, we find out Frendo's identity and their motives, and I didn't see it coming, and it was worse than I imagined, and I really enjoyed it. I like the tense aspect of it, like it was definitely thrilling. I was listening to the audiobook and like I was definitely like anxious and tense listening to it. And I also really liked the way the murder scenes were written. but I just didn't love it as much as Kill Creek, and since I read it after Kill Creek, I had to compare the two, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And the next book was The Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, and this was a horror novella. And we basically follow a group of teenagers as they prank their friend. And at first, you don't know if it's some kind of supernatural thing, if it's some psychopath killing people, or what the hell's going on. And I can't really say anything because it's really, really short. And if I give literally anything away, I'm gonna spoil the whole plot. But basically, it was not what I expected. And it was not as scary as I expected, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So the next group of books I read were all the books that are currently out for the Wayward Children series, and they also have a reading vlog for that, and I'm also gonna link it. And basically that series is fantasy, and it's about a bunch of kids that go through doorways that lead to other worlds. And most of those kids come back, and it's about their experiences in those worlds, and then their experiences back at their home. And there are 6 books currently out. And the first one is called Every Heart a Doorway. And this is basically the first glimpse we have at the world. And we see a bunch of kids at a school for kids who have come out of those worlds. And they all want to go back to those other worlds because they think that that's where they really belong. And so we see their struggle to fit back into their original worlds. And there was a murder mystery thing going on in this book, but I didn't really care about it at all. And I just wish I had seen more of the worlds those kids visited, and we just heard about them. So I didn't love this book, and I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book was called Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and in this one we got to see a new world, and we followed 2 characters that were in book 1. And they were both in the same world. So I think that was even better because we got to see 2 different sides of a world, 2 completely different sides of the same world. And I thought that was very interesting, and I also really liked following those 2 characters, and especially because I think I like them better than the main character from book 1. But book 1 does spoil book 2, and book 2 also spoils book 1. So yeah, for people who have a problem with spoilers, they might not love that aspect of it, but I gave this one 4.5 stars. The next book was called Beneath the Sugar Sky, and we also got to see a new world and follow new characters, but we also saw a bunch of characters from book 1 that I didn't really care about, and we didn't see the character discovering the world like in book 2. And they were just going on a quest. And since I didn't care about the characters, I didn't care about the quest, I didn't care about the book. And all I liked was the actual world building that happened. And I gave this one 3 stars. In an Absent Dream was my favorite of the whole series. We got to see a new character going to a new world, and I really loved this character so much. This was my favorite book, and maybe that's because this was my favorite character, but I really, really liked her. And I loved getting to know the world, although I wouldn't like to live in it, but I love getting to know it. And I also really like the fact that all the other kids wanted to stay at those worlds, but the main character from this book was conflicted because she felt like she belonged there, but at the same time, she didn't want to leave her family behind. So she felt conflicted, and I liked that because that made her feel more real, and I loved everything about this book, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book, Come Tumbling Down, I was really expecting to like because we were following characters from book 2 that I really loved, but I actually didn't love this one. And this was when I realized that I did not care about books that were about quests, because I didn't love book 1, I didn't love book 3, and I also apparently didn't love book 5, and they were all about quests and not about people discovering new worlds. And yes, we saw a bunch of characters from book 1 again, because one of the main characters from this one, Jack, went to ask for their help, so they all went to her world. But they were all pretty useless anyway, Jack did everything herself, so what was the point of their presence? Who knows? I definitely don't. Again, just here for the world building, gave it 3 stars. And the last book currently out of the series was called Across the Green Grass Fields, and new character, new world, Really liked this character, not as much as the character from book 4, but really liked her, really liked discovering the world, although it was also not my favorite, but I really liked the ending and the message behind the ending. If we ignore the epilogue, because the epilogue was sad and we were ignoring that it ever existed. So yes, I really liked the ending and I give this one 4.5 stars. And the final book I read this month was Pet Sematary by Stephen King, and I also have a reading vlog for it, and I'm also gonna link in the description. And this is a horror book, and we basically follow the Creed family as they move to Maine, and they quickly become friends with their neighbor Judd. And Judd decides to show them the pet cemetery, which is a place where kids bury their deceased pets. But there's another burial ground nearby, and that one is the important one. Let's just say it like that, because it's sort of magical, supernatural. I don't know what you're gonna call it, but it's special. And through the course of this book, the family suffers some losses, and we get to see how the main characters deals with them or doesn't really deal with them. And as a book about grief, I thought this was really, really good, because you see the length someone is willing to go through for someone they love. So yes, like as a book about grief, I would have given this book 5 stars, but since it was horror and I was expecting to be like really scared and I wasn't, I gave it 4.5 stars, but I still really, really, really enjoyed this book. Okay, so now you may be wondering, did I only read books that I vlogged? Yes, and that is because I got sucked into a black hole called Marvel, and I just randomly, out of the blue, decided to rewatch all the MCU movies, and I also decided to watch the TV shows that I hadn't watched yet. So yeah, that's what like the last part of my month consisted of, just Marvel. Everything around me was Marvel. And I don't know if anyone cares about it, but like I said, my life is Marvel now, so like I need to talk about it, so I'm gonna talk about it. I don't know if I'm gonna like actually spoil things, but like if you haven't watched the movies or the shows or just whatever, proceed with caution. So, I didn't watch them like in chronological order, I watched them in like the order they came out, and the first one was Iron Man 1. I got emotional like right there because Iron Man has always been my favorite Marvel superhero, or just superhero in general, because Marvel like he's the superior superhero thing. So yes, Iron Man has always been my favorite superhero. I actually, wait a second, I have, oh my god, everything's falling. I have like him here in my bedroom because I love him so much, and so I was emotional. Yeah. Sadness. Also, we are not gonna talk about Infinity War or Endgame because that's just unnecessary pain that I don't need to go through again. And just for context, my favorites are Tony, Nat, and Loki. So we're good, you know, we're fine, we're thriving. we're good. But anyway, moving on. There was like Captain America there at some point. Oh yeah, there was one movie I didn't watch. I didn't watch The Incredible Hulk, I think it's called, because it's with another actor, and Mark Ruffalo is just like so perfect for the role that I didn't want to watch it with someone else playing the Hulk, so I didn't watch it. If it was with Mark Ruffalo, I would have watched it because he's great, but yeah, didn't watch that. I mean, I had previously watched it, but I didn't rewatch it right now. But so yes, moving on. Captain America, really liked it, and I have to say, I don't know who I have the biggest crush on. Is it Steve? Is it Peggy? I don't know. Also, Nat is an absolute legend because she's literally just a human. Obviously like a very trained, skilled human, but she's literally just a human out there kicking ass. And I'm just like, yes, queen, an absolute icon. Also, I don't remember being emotional watching Guardians of the Galaxy, because I just remember it being like funny and hilarious and a great time, but I was emotional now. By the way, this was a whole like emotionally draining experience for me. Like, I'm not okay. I am not okay. But moving on, Spider-Man. I really like Spider-Man. He's kind of a hot mess, kind of an idiot, but like adorable. I don't know, I love him. And also, like Black Panther. I love Black Panther. Like, can I live in Wakanda, please? But what I wanted to say is, obviously love T'Challa, like, he's great, but Shuri stole the show, or the movie, or whatever, like, Queen, another absolute icon. Also, when the Hulk said, I'm always angry, I felt that. Okay, there is someone I haven't talked about. I mean, there are probably many someones, but Thor. So, I've always loved Thor, right? Like, Thor is great, everybody loves Thor. But my friend and I had a whole conversation about Thor and Loki. And we were like comparing Thor and Loki. And Loki is just so much better. Like he's so much more interesting, you know, as a character. And so like we had a whole conversation in which we came out not knowing if we loved Thor anymore. And like, I've always loved Thor, so like, what the actual hell happened? We were both so like, what just happened here? So, friendly advice, never do this to a character that you like, because it's gonna be bad. So, I've always liked Loki, like, he's great, but that conversation resulted in like a whole new unhealthy obsession with Loki, and so I had to watch the show. And oh boy, that was a journey. Like I said, emotionally draining. Also, like I'm making a lot of noise because I'm like moving his arms. I don't know if the camera is picking that up, but I'm just gonna stop. I'm like very fidgety. I have to always be using my hands to do something. So yes, I'm just gonna lock them here. So yes, I watched Loki and I cried like right on episode 1. That was so sad. Like episode 1 was heartbreaking. And then the last episode, like I cried. Like I literally cried when he said to Mobius, "Thank you, my friend." It was like I was texting my own friend. I was like, he has a friend. I am crying. I was like literally like bawling my eyes out because Loki had a friend. That's the state I was in. And then I also cried again at the ending because the ending was heartbreaking again. Like I said, we're thriving here. Oh, also, Sylvie is definitely the superior variant. Although, like, what she did at the ending was questionable, but still, also an icon. But, heartbreaking ending. And speaking of heartbreaking endings, I watched WandaVision after that. And oh my god, that was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. Like, the first half of the series was just chaos, absolute chaos. I was like, what the actual hell is going on? And then I realized what was going on. And then it was just heartbreaking, just sadness all the way. I cried again a lot. It was sad. It was really sad. And lastly, I watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And like compared to Loki and WandaVision, which were just chaotic, like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was just so much more grounded that I was just like, what is happening here? But I mean, they're still both hilarious. I absolutely loved it. Did I cry? Of course I did. I cried when Sam and Bucky were like bonding and being adorable, and I was just like, they're so cute, I'm gonna cry. And I cried. And then I cried when Sam was like accepting to be the new Captain America, because it was just like such a powerful scene, and I was just like sad and happy and everything and all the emotions, and I loved it. And I came to the conclusion that there is literally nothing in this world that makes me cry like Marvel does, because I usually don't cry with stuff, but Marvel just brings that emotion out of me. And this was like an emotionally draining experience. I am dehydrated from so much crying. I am not okay. I am really not okay. So as you probably can imagine, I don't really have like a set TBR for next month. I don't have a set goal for my life anymore. I'm lost. I'm all over the place. But I have started reading Heretics of Dune. And what is this book about? I have no idea because I've read like 30 pages and I just know that it's like a lot of time after book 4. Oh yeah, this is the 5th book in the Dune series. Like, I'm a mess. Just talking about Marvel, like, my brain stops functioning. But yes, book 5 in the Dune series. It's a lot of time after what happened in book 4. I have no idea what this is about. I've read 30 pages and I'm even more confused than I was before I started reading it. But yes, I am reading that. The next book I want to read is The Loop by Ben Oliver, and this is a science fiction novel. And The Loop is basically a death row for teenagers under 18, and they can delay their executions if they basically let people experiment on them. But they don't know about this, but there is a war brewing outside of The Loop, and that is all I know. Another book I want to read is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Me not knowing how to pronounce anything. What else is new? But yes, this book, like, first of all, this book is gigantic. It's like bigger than my face. But it's also a science fiction book, and this is about Ryland Grace, who is on a like last chance mission to save humanity. But when he awakes, he has no idea where he is, who he is, what he has to do, nothing. He's just lost out there. And again, that's all I know about this book. Another book I want to read is The Dragon Reborn, which is book 3 of the Wheel of Time series. And again, what do I know about this book? Not much. And also, what I do know, I don't want to spoil for people who haven't read the other 2 previous books. But basically, in the end of book 2, the characters went like on their separate missions. And so I think that we're gonna follow their separate missions, and I'm very excited because I'm really loving these characters and what they're doing and the plot, and yes, overall very excited. Okay, so I think this was a mess. I'm a mess. I feel just like emotionally drained again just from talking about Marvel, but we're here persevering. And yes, I think this brings us to the end of this video, which is probably gigantic because I started talking about Marvel and I could talk about Marvel for hours and I need to shut up. And yes, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!